Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Alley Oop program. Who would have thought we're into episode 7? That's right, Lanard Copeland. 7 episodes of talking basketball, and it's been a lot of fun so far, and hopefully we have another enjoyable show today because we're going to talk about the NBA playoffs. They've just started, and we've just gone through this bubble situation, and then a little later in the program, we're going to speak to a player that I would put in the veteran category of his NBL career, and that is Jason Cadee. We had the pleasure of coaching him during our time with the Sydney Kings. He's a delight to coach. He's a fantastic player and has had to endure a bit of hardship throughout the course of his career. So we're really looking forward to that chat, Copes, and another big edition with a lot to discuss.
Absolutely. I'm so excited about the NBA. I don't know what to do. I mean, the playoffs have started. My favorite team's out there playing well. Like you said, we're going to talk to Jason, who's one of my favorite guys because he's such a nice guy.
Yes.
And can shoot the piss out of it. You know,
my word, he can. He can shoot with the best of them.
I'm excited about the show.
It is. And, well, Coach, so I thought the best way to kick the show off today is to, now that we've gone through this little bubble phase, I thought we'd go through and just focus on 3 things that we learnt or that has transpired since the bubble went into play. And the good news is for those in the bubble is that they're now allowing visitors to attend. So for those players that have
only the second round, though. It only starts the second round of the playoffs.
That's right. For those that are going to be there for an extended period of time, they're allowing visitors. In fact, I believe you can, correct me if I'm wrong here, Coach, I believe you can bring in close personal friends and you can have up to 4, is it?
Up to 4 people can come in and only one person gets a ticket to a game.
Yes.
With a child or someone under 32 inches.
That's right. And when we think of someone under 32 inches, and we all know that players like to have a bit of tomfoolery and a bit of a joke around, and Luka Doncic, who's been an absolute sensation, well, he's jumped on that, and he thought one of his teammates, Berea, because he wasn't sure he exceeded that limit.
He's a funny guy.
He is a funny guy, but Stephen A. Smith, we love his work on ESPN, and he's very outspoken. And he was alluding to that perhaps everyone has a breaking point when it comes to that isolation. And although it's not complete isolation because they get to share the time with their teammates and other people from other teams in that bubble situation, he still thought that everyone has needs. And he thought that it's now time that perhaps some of those needs need to be satisfied.
You know, they should decide who is of significance to them. You don't get to determine that. You could have met somebody a month ago that means more to you than somebody you've known for years. We don't know that. So I think that they need to be careful about the kind of restrictions. But I am proud of them for making this move and to understand. And personally speaking, I think it should be before August 31st.
All Stephen A. Smith's saying is we all need love, brother. We all need love. Everyone needs it. You got to do the right thing, though. You got to do the right thing. Bring in someone you know. You can't just have any random coming into the bubble.
Yes.
But as he's alluding to, we all need a little loving, and that's going to help these guys play a little bit better.
Well, it will, and it make their time go a little bit easier. Missing family and friends is never easy, albeit these days imagine going back to the early 2000s where you couldn't even FaceTime. These guys take that for granted. But back when we were in the NBA, Coach, we had to write letters. Now, people out there, young folk there may not know what a letter is.
They don't know what a letter is.
A letter is you get a bit of paper and you actually write on the paper. You fold it up, you put it in this thing called an envelope, and then you whack a stamp on them, whack that in the mail, and then hopefully within about 2 weeks, someone will get that message.
They wouldn't have a clue, Joey. They would not have a clue. That's funny.
Imagine that. But no, it's hopefully it will make their experience a little bit easier. But the number 2 thing that is coming out of this bubble exercise is that for the first time in 22 seasons, the San Antonio Spurs are not going to be featuring in post-season play. Firstly, we say commiserations because they didn't reach their goal of making the playoffs. But secondly, it marks a moment where we say congratulations to the San Antonio Spurs and Greg Popovich because that is an extraordinarily long period of time. And if you have to go back to have a look at some of these things that were going around 22 years ago, Bill Clinton was the president. The first DVD. Now,
Wow.
we've actually gone through a period where back then DVDs were just starting. A lot of the young folk, again, like we're talking about envelopes, that has come and gone, the DVD. The DVD has gone to the IT graveyard in the sky. So that's come and gone. Tiger Woods was a sensation back then. Harry Potter, the Titanic, the great movie, was winning Academy Awards.
Jordan, now I got a question for you.
Yes.
You played under Pop.
Yes.
Pop's done an amazing job with this. When you had that lineup with Duncan and Ginobili and
Yes.
Tony Parker and all those guys, how long do you think Pop can maintain, or how long do you think he'll stay in the business?
Well, he's a highly competitive guy, and everyone gets to that age where you say, well, I've been there, done that. I don't think for 1 second that Greg Popovich is anywhere near that. I got a chance to say g'day to Pop and spend a little bit of time over in China when he was with the coaching the Team USA. Let's not forget he's going to be the Team USA Olympic head coach next year in Tokyo. And his record is still impeccable. Hiccups this season. And I don't think their team was at a point where they're ever going to contend for a title. But if it weren't for the bubble, who knows? They may have actually found a way to edge their way in, because even with that, what they miss out by a game, or it wasn't of that play-in situation. So it's not like he was miles away from it. So I think that he's got a lot left in the tank if he feels that way. But there are others. Did you see the report that the Brooklyn Nets, now Sean Marks is the general manager of the Brooklyn Nets, and he played under Pop when he spent some time in San Antonio. And those of us in this part of the world would know Sean Marks because he played for New Zealand. And he has been reported to say that he was prepared to offer Greg Popovich a Godfather offer.
Never going to happen. Never going to happen with Pop. Is it never going to leave San Antonio? Are you kidding me?
Well, when you think of their team, you got Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, and you look at how well they qualified for the playoffs this season. There's a lot of upside when you look at the Nets, and clearly they're prepared to invest in winning a championship when you look at the players they've brought in. So that would be enticing. But I think I absolutely agree with you that that is unlikely. Here's a thing that I want to ask you. Chris Broussard, who does some work over in the United States, I was listening to a grab with him, and he was with his co-host, Rob Parker. And sometimes you think, well, do these commentators say things just for clicks? And of course, some of them do. But Rod Parker actually claimed that he did not think that Greg Popovich deserves to be regarded as one of the all-time great coaches. He says, and he doesn't think that, and he said he didn't think it was because he didn't think he was a great coach. He just think that the circumstances that he was, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, basically saying, well, because you had Tim Duncan, because you got David Robinson, and you've had great players come through, that he doesn't think that he deserves to be in that same echelon of coach. Now, personally,
how can you make that argument when Phil Jackson's had Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, and he's known as one of the best coaches? How could you ever make that argument?
Well, he did, and he actually went on to say that he thought that he'd take Larry Brown, who was a great coach, but he'd take Larry Brown over Greg Popovich. And it just makes your mind think when you hear people say like that. But I was curious to get your view to say,
clearly, you're a bit biased because you know Popovich.
I am biased.
But guess what? I would honestly say Popovich is one of the greatest coaches I've ever seen work. And the reason why is because he demands respect from his all-stars. I've never seen a coach go off on his all-stars the way he does, but they respect him and they play hard for him.
Yep.
I got the utmost respect for him.
Well, I tell you, I remember a situation we'd played, and we had a shaky start to the season, but we started to win some games, and then we went to Denver. And I remember the game, again, like I did remember a story I told last week. I remember it for two reasons. Firstly, because I got in the game, and I got to play against Chris Anstey. So I do remember it for that. But we ended up losing the game. And at the end of the game, we're disappointed. We're in the locker room, and Pop came in and just tore the paint on the walls was curdling with the emotive speech that Pop was giving, and he went at David Robinson and Tim Duncan called them out more than I've ever seen any player.
What did you do? What did you do? What did you do?
Well, in my head, I thought this is unusual for the level of directness to Tim Duncan and David Robinson. And it was one of those awkward times where I was just sitting there thinking, well, something's going to either David and Tim are going to flip out. But the reason why that team and subsequent teams with David Robinson and Tim Duncan, I think, had success, and by that I mean the ultimate success of winning championships, is that they listened, they looked him in the eye, they took it, they didn't speak back, they didn't take it personally, they copped it on the chin, and they moved on. Now, I don't know in today's team environments whether some of those superstar elite players are prepared to have that type of conversation in front of everyone else, being called out like that. I don't get a sense that players, not just in the NBA, but at any level,
NBL, CBA, they would be fired straight away. Coaches are out of there. I'm telling you now.
Yeah, and don't forget, this is a time, I can understand how you can get away with it now. Because when you win 5 championships and you've done what Greg Popovich has done, it makes sense. But this is, don't forget, was in a time when he hadn't won anything. The jury was still out on Greg Popovich. So, and I think that speaks volumes for him in the way in which that he didn't care who you are. He was going to hold you accountable, but was able to do it in a way that he still showed great love for his players.
It also speaks volumes for the type of players he recruited too.
Yes.
You can't bring in anybody like that and go off in the locker room and expect them to buy into whatever you're saying and then go out and play hard for you the next day. So a lot of it depends on who you bring in as well as what kind of coach you are.
Oh, of course. And that's what I say. I give a lot of credit to all those players, a veteran group, and they dealt with it magnificently. And it's one of the features of Pop, and that's what's made him great. Now, Coach, the third thing that I want to talk about of what we're seeing now that the players have just started.
I want to talk about it. Let's go.
And I don't know whether this is the right heading, but is there trouble in Philadelphia?
Absolutely. 100%.
Ben Simmons is not there, and just the way in which this team that's been put together, the way in which they're working with each other, do they have all the pieces to make it a success? And after game 1, we saw some disappointment in Joel Embiid, and clearly he's accepted some responsibility. Here's a grab of Joel Embiid straight after the game.
I gotta do more. Whatever those stats are, I gotta do more. I gotta, I got one job to do. It's to carry us. I'm gonna need my teammates to help me, but I gotta do more.
So, Coach, he understands he's got to do more, and I think we agree with it. There's been, since that game, and over the course of the journey with Joel Embiid, there's been a lot of criticism of the way in which he's being used. What did you see in that game?
I'll tell you exactly what I've seen. When a guy goes 5 for 5 in the first quarter,
yes,
and he comes out the second quarter, and you don't give him the ball, or you don't get him the ball. Now, Joey, let me just say this. I think he had 2 or 3 touches at the second quarter, maybe. When I say touches, I mean
shots.
Attempts.
Yeah.
Right. Now, as big as he is and as strong as he is, they're going to double team him.
Yep.
Why wouldn't you put him on the box and let them double team him there so he can swing the ball out and these guys from the outside can shoot the ball? Right now, he's shooting too much from the 3-point line. He's at the top of the key. He's not down on the box where he should be. That's me. Now, obviously, they think he's a better ball handler and shooter than most big men. I'm putting him on the box. I'm throwing it inside. If they do double team, you kick it out, you bomb away.
And that's true. And that's, I guess, a traditional way to look at it. But as we've spoken to Phil Handy and we spoke to Dave Patrick, you look at an NBA game now and it's almost, regardless of what your physical attributes are, it is spread the floor. Very few teams actually throw people on the box and throw them the ball and say, here we go, go get it and do your thing. And even in that game, I say it's a little unfair on Brett Brown because there are times, and down the stretch in that fourth quarter when we saw it, there was a couple of big plays and he was on the box, but he was not presenting the target like he was demanding it. He was down there. Yeah, he was there, and they didn't throw it to him. But there is this style of play that is in vogue right now where you're not encouraged. Now, if you go back to Tim Duncan's day, if you didn't throw it in there, 4 down, pop and call. 4 down. Right. Very simple. Tim's on the box, get him the ball.
Right.
Now, they do that these days, but the point of emphasis of actually throwing it in there, and I think it's twofold on him as well as the structure. And right now, from what I'm seeing, I'm not trying to – I know Brett Brown's a friend of mine, but we all know that sometimes it's up to the individual to demand that ball.
Absolutely, Drew. I agree with you. But what I don't agree with is, and we know Embiid, he can be a bit selfish sometimes. If he doesn't touch the ball 2 or 3 times down the floor, he looks uninterested. Is that fair to say about him?
Occasionally, his body language does sometimes give that off.
If I'm Brett Brown and my job is on the line, I'm telling that big guy, get your ass on that box, and I'm telling my guards to throw that ball inside. That's me. Now,
well, I don't think he's not doing that. You could, like I said, in that clutch moment, he was on the box. There was another moment that was just as clutch. Yes, granted, he wasn't there. And he actually took a wild 3 when they still had a very, very rough chance. He took a deep, deep 3. And he's out there, and he can hit those. Make no mistake, he can.
But is he better on the box, or is he better shooting fall-away threes?
I think, personally, he's better on the box. But he's good all over the floor. And there are times you see him on the box and you say, mate, that is very hard to stop. But there are some other times on the box you think, what are you doing down there? I mean, you could say that about everyone, I suppose. But
they're playing against the Boston Celtics. Does Boston have a big man that can control him on the box?
Well,
if you put him on the box right now, who's guarding him on the box?
Well, they got the French kid with the tattoos.
Yeah, okay.
But you could say that about anyone. You know, you look at Horford, you say, well, Horford's pretty tough. There's a lot of players that are good on the box, but right now it's about spreading the floor, shoot the 3, or attack the rim.
They just look out of whack to me. They look out of whack, and I don't know how far they're going to go playing like that against the Boston Celtics, who look a lot better.
Yep.
Swung the ball, shot the ball well, played as a team.
Just before we get off this topic, though, sometimes you look at players and you have these high expectations, and then you look back on their career and you say, well, you know what? Maybe we overestimated the player and didn't get enough credit to the coaches having to deal with that. And a classic example that I try to find to similarities to what Embiid is going through is Dwight Howard.
Yes.
Remember Dwight Howard? He got very close to the promised land with Orlando. Outstanding player. And at the time, we think he is a difference maker. He is one of those top 3 players that's going. Now, I don't think he ever fulfilled that. But there are coaches along the way that had him in their program that said that were highly criticized because Dwight Howard is not showing as doing what they think he's capable of, and they blame the coach.
Let me ask this question. Does it have something to do with once you receive that massive contract as a player, not saying all players, but I see some players who will get the big dollar contract and they're not interested in getting 25 and 12.
I don't think that's the case with Joel Embiid. I think that he showed a lot of emotion when they lost that heartbreaker shot where it bounced last year against Toronto where Kawhi, and it bounced 28 times on the rim and they'd miss out and getting to the finals. The emotion that he showed was genuine and it was a raw. And I think that only comes when you do have a great passion for competing. And everything that I've seen and heard of Joel Embiid, he's a great teammate.
Yeah.
He's a good fella. Yeah, his emotions might go up and down a little bit. But I don't think that money or those things are the factor here. I just think that maybe you get to a point where he's an elite, exceptional talent, but maybe we might be overemphasizing just how good or how impactful he can be, and we're trying to blame others for why things aren't going right for him. But when you see him in that first quarter and the way he dominated, like you mentioned, you say, well, you can understand why you don't want to get any more of that, or you wouldn't go back to more of that.
That's right.
Hey, Copes, let's move on. Just very, very quickly. we saw the all NBA bubble teams.
Yes.
And the good thing about this, you look at this first team, Devin Booker, Luka Doncic, TJ Warren. They are, I think, not surprises, but to be in the first team, I think that they absolutely deserve it. They all deserve it. James Harden is the other one, and Damian Lillard, all exceptional. Do you see anything wrong with that selection?
Not a thing wrong with it, because all 5 of those guys played their butts off.
Yep.
All 5 of them had look, led their teams in victory.
Yep.
And all 5 are in the playoffs. Well, actually, 4 out of 5 are in the playoffs.
Yes.
I thought Phoenix, if Phoenix played like this back in the day, they'd be in the playoffs right now as well.
Well, they would, and they won 8-0, so we spoke about them last week. The other one, too, is the All-Star second team. Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kawhi Leonard, Kristaps Porzingis, Carlos LeVert. Now, he's one that we all thought was great. I remember watching him at Michigan and thinking, this guy's going to be a star. I think we're seeing the breakout over the last sort of couple of seasons with Caris LeVert.
He's struggling with injury, though. He's carrying every year. He carries either a foot injury or a hand injury that hampers him. But if he's healthy, he's a phenomenon. He's something to watch.
Yes, and Michael Porter, of course, we spoke about him last week. I thought he has been exceptional. Big, long athlete, can shoot it inside, outside. And
great body, has a great body. 6'10".
Yep.
Was #1 high school player of the year. Yeah.
And I think he went to Missouri, I think it was, got hurt, didn't play a lot in that freshman year, was touted to be the #1 pick, slipped down to number 14, I think it was, but he has just been exceptional. And you look at Denver and how their future might look. It's looking very, very bright. Coach, the NBA Finals have started.
Yes, sir.
In the Western Conference, I think that's where a lot of the attention's going. We've got Lakers, Portland, Houston, OKC, Denver, Utah, and the Clippers. The
mighty Clippers, pal. Get it right.
Words aren't coming out of my mouth all that well today.
No, you just don't want to say the Clippers because you know that's my team.
No, that's your team. It's the Clippers and Dallas. And then, of course, in the East, we've got Milwaukee, Orlando, Miami, Indiana is going to be great. Boston versus Philly, which we've touched on a little bit with our discussion on Philadelphia, and Toronto versus Brooklyn. We can't go into all these series. Which one are you most excited about?
Obviously, I'm more excited about the Clippers playing Dallas. And that game was a very good game to watch.
Yes.
Like the first game. The sad thing was the big fella got kicked out, which I thought was terrible.
Kristaps Porzingis.
I thought it was terrible. If you got to play, let him play, man. You know.
Well, we've got to talk about this.
What do you think?
A lot of talk. For those that haven't seen it, we've got some vision that you can look at. But he during the game, he got a technical foul. And then there was a hint. Doncic was there, and Porzingis comes in and separates him. In my view, nothing in it. But because he'd already had that first personal technical foul, this minor altercation, they look at it and say, well, because you came in and really just pushed the players. I mean, it was such minimal contact. And to me, it didn't even look like there was any threat of something exploding out of it. And he gets another technical foul. My personal view, Copes, is that they've got it wrong in the sense that when you're going to disqualify someone, I think you need to categorize technical fouls.
Yes.
So if you've categorized one because you've abused the ref, if you abuse the ref again, well, okay, you haven't learnt your lesson. You're out. Ta-da. Yep. See you later.
I agree.
But if you've had a technical for abusing the ref, and then in the emotion of the game you get involved, and it's so minimal, the contact, and so insignificant when you think of what's at stake.
And such a good game to watch. You know, Drew, it's clear that the referees overreacted. It's clear. What happens in a case like that, though? Well, now, do the referees go back and talk about it and say, maybe next time we don't do this? Or do they have to continue now with that same form?
Well, Copes, this is the point. And there's been a lot of discussion. Some people are saying, well, it's these guys, they're being locked up together. You got to allow them to be a little bit more emotional. All that is true. And there's a lot of explanations you can point to.
Yep.
But the thing that I think needs clarification is the actual rule. And that's why I'm saying if you categorize it, then you have a better chance, because they go and look at this, look back on it, and technically the referees were 100% correct.
That's right.
Technically,
Yeah.
they made the right call.
Yeah.
But I think that's where you've got to take that
Use your common sense.
or put it in context, Coach.
Yeah.
There's got to be context around these incidences because it's it changed the whole shape of the game. You've got Luka Doncic going on and doing this, having this extraordinary output. The most points. What did he have? Over 40. First time,
42 points. Yeah.
the youngest ever player in their first playoff game to get over 40. So you've got all these extraordinary things happening, and Kawhi Leonard's a superstar. He just leads, and the variations of this game. You see Clippers come out, get the first 10, and then halfway through it, Dallas go on a 40-18 run.
Yeah.
It was so up and down. A great game. That's.
But Drew, you know what I think people are failing to miss out on is, yes, the players are in a bubble. The players had time off, but the referees had time off as well. I mean, they're going to make mistakes.
Yep.
And I think the NBA has done a good job by putting the referee unit on the sideline. So when they do make mistakes, they're able to go over and talk about it. But at the end of the day, they're only human. That's what the referees used to tell us when they made those terrible calls.
Yes.
We're only human.
Yes.
They make mistakes just like you guys do. So
yeah. Well, like I said, technically the referees didn't make a mistake, but it's the rules and the way in which there's context. There's got to be a better way. It's not easy. I don't think there's any foolproof answer, but we've got to avoid. I think they need to avoid circumstances like that. Copes, the other series that I think that most people are really focusing in on is the Lakers Portland, and you can't speak more highly of Damian Lillard and what he was able to do. And one of the great when he had that 61 points, and maybe the people at Adidas. Because he's an Adidas endorsed athlete. You know what they did? They said, well, he had 61. So for a 24-hour period, they put all his shoes on sale for $61.
What a great promotion. What a fantastic promotion, Drew.
These shoes are normally
$120, $130, yeah.
If not more.
Yeah.
So fantastic. And how happy with the executive saying, well, if they had this plan, well, we need to we'll have this marketing opportunity if he gets over 50. When he got to 60, how happy would be?
They're trying to get him to 70. Go up a little higher.
Come on. Let this man get 75, and we've got to.
Hey, quickly, your shoe's coming out soon.
Yes.
Can you drop that shoe to $10 because you wore 10 on your chest?
Well, Copes, my shoe's only full recommended retail, I think, is $34.95 for the adults and $29.95.
Here we go. The Gaze shoe is back.
The Gaze shoe will be back later on the year, available in Big W's coming up in December. For those of you who are interested, I appreciate the pump up. But Copes, this series, big test for LeBron James in leading his team. You've got a lot of different stories that you can point to, but this is possibly the most difficult matchup for a number one seed.
Can I make a prediction real quick, though?
Yes, please.
I'm saying this. I think the Lakers will win the series.
Yes.
But I think game one, the Lakers will lose because they've had so much rest. LeBron and AD didn't play in the last couple of games.
Yes.
Whereas Lillard and his group were in playoff mode in that game 7 and that game 8, and also that game when they had the tie to get to the playoffs. So I'm just predicting that the Lakers will probably lose that first game.
Yes.
They'll come strong in the next round.
Well, and in fairness, we don't know the result of that game when we're recording this, but we do know that the Milwaukee Bucks, they come up short against the Orlando Magic in game 1. So that is a big, big surprise. And what it does say is that in this neutral venue, they put the signs up. Clappy. Here's our Boston Celtics signs or whatever because it's our home game. That means nothing. It's neutral as you'll ever get in an NBA game. And because of that, I think if you are going to pick Copes, the upset of the playoffs, who's your pick? Who do you think has the best chance to cause an upset?
It definitely had to be Portland. It wouldn't have been. It would not have been the Milwaukee game. No way.
Orlando? You don't think Orlando across 7 games?
They didn't even have a couple of guys out with injury. It probably would be Portland over the Lakers. I'd have to say.
No, well, that's true. If I was I don't even know if you would call it an upset, but the one that I don't know whether I was hoping for it or not. So I don't even know why I'd say this, but for some reason my heart is with OKC. Now I know that they came up short in their game against the Houston Rockets in Houston. How about them? No Russell Westbrook. He's got that quad injury and still able to get a win, playing their small ball. They're doing it differently. So good on them. But I was again, I don't know why, but I just for some reason was hoping that OKC would do well. Hey, Copes, a lot to really looking forward to it. We'll follow it. We'll try and have some discussion each and every week on what's going off. But it's now time to welcome our very special guest. One of our former players at the Sydney Kings, and he is a veteran of the NBL and comes from absolute blue blood stock when you think of his dad in Robbie Cadee. And I speak of the great Jason Cadee. Welcome to the program, Jace. You should feel very privileged to be on our program because we only have the absolute very best.
I do. When I seen this show started, I was like, if they don't call me to get on this, I'll be very, very disappointed. And now we can talk for about 5 hours and really bore people, so it'll be great.
No, absolutely. We're going to bore the crap out of people because we've got a lot to talk to you about. But just before we get stuck into all the basketball stuff, COVID-19, we live in Victoria and we are in complete lockdown. As a player and supposedly starting in December the season, do you have any reservations? How are you feeling? Has it impacted you guys with your preparation and your practice?
It obviously changed everyone's life. I think about March when it really shut everything down. And I was back in Sydney seeing my mum and dad, and I was back for about 4 days. And then they announced I was shutting the borders. So jumped in the car, got out of there so I wasn't locked in Sydney the whole time. And then we weren't allowed in stadiums for a while. We weren't even allowed to shoot. So that whole process was weird because for much of my life, I've been used to at least being able to go to a stadium and shoot if I wanted to. So the first 2 months was pretty hard because we didn't have access to anything. And then I would say for us now at the moment in Queensland, we're pretty fortunate. Like I've played 2 weeks of our local QSL, they're calling it. And we've kind of been on floor for about a month, maybe 6 weeks now. So we're kind of, I wouldn't say back to normal, but we've got things happening which makes it feel a bit normal. So it's weird thinking that you guys down there are complete opposite to us at the moment.
Jory, I think you're being a little bit selfish. You said first things first. Let's talk about Jason being a father.
Oh, yes.
Jason, you got a son.
Yes.
What's it like being
Little
a father?
Louie.
What's it like having responsibility now? You can't hang out in those nightclubs now, Jason. Talk to me, brother.
Coach, I've never been a club member.
Oh, here we go.
Saints. No, it's good. I mean, I learned from you. You were really good at sorting your responsibilities out, Coach, I would say. You had to delegate when you had to. But, no, it's awesome. And obviously, through this period, being stuck at home, I mean, what a time to be stuck at home, I guess. He's gone from that period where he was a baby and just a baby to finding himself to being a child and starting to learn how to do things and walking and crawling and spluttering words or whatever he's saying. So you'd be happy to know both of you actually. One of his first few steps that he took, he had a basketball in his hand and he walked and dunked in that hoop behind me.
Wow.
Beautiful.
So I'm hoping that's a good sign of things to come because he's got a little bit to live up to in our family with everyone being a bit of a basketball head. So we'll find out.
Well, not just a bit of a basketball head. They are they're legends. Your old man, Robbie Cadee, he's played for Australia, played at the highest level internationally, and hopefully that little Louie there is going to follow in those footsteps. But just talk about
your mom play. Your mom played as well. Right?
Actually, your mum as well. What am I talking
about? Come on, Joey. Come on, man.
You have to give Grant some props too, I guess. He played.
Yeah, that's true. He played in the NBL for the Nuttall Spectres and the St Kilda Saints. But yourself and your relationship with your dad, how was that and the influence that he had on you?
He coached me in under 16s. The only year he coached me in juniors, and it was a bit here and there how it went. And I was bottom age 16, so I was still finding myself bottom age. And then he coached me when I was just out of 18s, played ABA.
Mm-hmm.
And when he coached me it was a different world for me. I took it in a new light and I understood. I guess I got a bit smarter too. And I really, what he was saying really made a lot of sense to me. And so I think now whenever I talk to him, I know I'm getting pretty good advice and I'm just getting the honest answers. And so I think that's the biggest thing. He wasn't one that criticised me all the time. He wasn't one that blew smoke up my bum either. He just kind of told me how it was, and I think that helped me in the long run.
Do you think you'll ever coach one day, Jason? I mean, because when you played with us, you were one of the smarter guards, and we'd always ask you your advice. Do you think you'd ever coach one day?
I think so. Since being in Queensland a little bit, and even my last few years when I was in Sydney, I was around kids a bit more, and I guess I had a bit more to do with camps and running some things, and I quite enjoyed watching kids really start to pick things up. And one of my best mates who lives up here, Anthony Petrie, he currently coaches at TSS school and his daughter in the under-16 Gold Coast program. So he's asked me to help out a little bit, and I found myself starting to really enjoy teaching, and I guess watching kids start to try things and pick things up. And I think, you guys are both the same. I've been involved in basketball since I could walk, and so I would struggle to find myself not being involved in some capacity.
And put your coach's hat on right now, Jace, and style of play, the way the game's evolving, very much shoot the three or get to the rim. Mid-range is sort of a bit of a poison with a lot of people these days. What do you make of the current trends?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. I just think when you see it, how people have played from, I guess, even back in your day to now, and I think it's a bit of a circle, right, as a lot of things are. I think it'll come back, and I find it kind of suits me because I'm not really a mid-range shooter, even though I probably should be. But I think personnel-wise, you kind of have to let some guys flow. And like a few years ago when we had Jerome Randall, I think mid-range, he was pretty good shooting that. And so I think there's some guys you've kind of got to let take those shots. And then I think, like for myself, I normally shoot threes or I'm towards the ring. And so I feel like the one thing, because Dre's system is very much that, even though he's kind of lessened it a little bit with guys like when we had Lamar and things. I think normally if I'm shooting mid-range, it's because I'm open. It's not because I'm trying to force one. So it's a hard one, but I think it's personnel. It's who you've got at the end of the day and where they fit in that. And I think we're starting to learn that some guys shoot that okay. And if it's not a contested one, then I don't see a problem with it really.
You know, you're speaking of Lamar. You guys have lost Lamar for the up and coming season. What kind of player are you looking for? What do you think you need to be successful this year?
Another Lamar.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Nah, look, we all wanted Lamar back, and I honestly was a bit surprised that he signed with New Zealand. But we all know this is a business first and foremost, and it's a shame. We had, I think. Not that he could go into any program and be good, but I don't know how it'll work in New Zealand because over here we kind of built things around him in a way, and we saw him as I did as a teammate that I thought I'd play with in Brisbane for a long time. So it's a shame, but New Zealand didn't sign Scotty Hopson because they signed Lamar, so I'd take him in a heartbeat.
Oh, yes. You're going to have a different look. You get Drimmick, you get Harry Froling comes on board, and just the incredible improvement that we've seen over the last season and a half in Will Magnay. Just talk to us a little bit, though, about Tamari. Am I saying that right?
Tamari.
Say it again.
Tamari. I know your horrible names, Joey. Tamari.
Well, we remember his name.
Put some slang in it, Joey. Put some slang
Tamari
in it.
Wigness.
There you go.
He I saw him playing with the Australian team in the juniors. A lot of hype around this kid and what he's capable of. And I suspected he would have expectations of continuing on and trying to make his way into the NBA. Tell us your first impressions, if you've seen much of him so far, or have you seen much of him so far?
I have. Actually, he's living with me, so I've got 2 kids in the house.
Then you see him a lot.
He first and foremost, he's a great kid. He's probably he's a quiet kid at first, but once he gets outgoing, he's actually a real personality, and I think he'll be great amongst a group of males and amongst the team. I think he'll add a bit of value in that point. And he actually came with us last year in the preseason, and we played a couple of games in Melbourne and Cairns. And I said to Sammy, because Sammy was our assistant, and there was a bit going on in our preseason last year with people away and stuff. And I said to Sammy, this kid, he could help us. He's something different. He's an Aussie kid. He's not your just genuine, just like bring it down the floor. He plays with pace and a bit of flair and a bit of excitement. And I think it's actually, he's one of those kids that he might make a play and you're like, what's he doing? But I think you've got to let him go that way a little bit because that's how he is, and it's different to what we're used to. But I think if he can develop his 3-ball, that'll help him immensely. But I think his pace and his ability to get out and run and climb into people, I don't think he'll light the league on fire this year, but I think you'll see him play some good minutes and have very good patches where he just makes a 6-8 point run himself because of his flair and ability to get the ball up and down the court.
You spoke about Magnate. Do you think he'll hang around this league, or do you think he's good enough to play in the NBA?
I'm nervous. I think my gut feel is we're going to lose him, to be honest, for this season. Wills, as you both know how that works, he's had a lot of interest and a lot of phone calls. If the COVID thing didn't hit, we might already have an answer to whether he'd be with us or not, because that's pushed everything back. I know he's been having meetings with teams on Zoom like we are now and things like doing lots of stuff like that. So I think for him, he's in a weird place because I think he's got to act like he's going to be here. But as a kid, it's hard to act like you're going to be here when you don't know where you're going to be. So I'd love to say we'd have him this season. And I think ultimately for his development, I think it would be perfect for him coming a year here, rolling into whatever they have on the back end of the NBA. But as you know, if that call comes, I'll be pushing him on the plane real quick to make sure.
100%.
No, of course you will. What about you, Jace? Where you see your role was at? You had a real up and down season last season. You finished strong. Where do you see your progression? What's your role going to be? Because as I saw your minutes last season, you're down about 22, 23 minutes a game, which is a lot less than you've had previously. Yeah. So where are you at?
I actually felt like, my year got better as the year went on last year. I guess it was a weird one. I came in my first year and I think I kind of lost myself a little bit. I think I still played all right, but I lost the ability to kind of score, and I just kind of went away from that into just getting people the ball and giving it to people in the right spots. And then when it came time to worry about myself, I kind of forgot about it. So I think last year I kind of found that mix a little bit better. And we had, as everyone knows, a bit of a weird makeup last year. We had a lot of guards and a lot of talented guards. And so it meant at times that if someone was rolling, you weren't going to play. And I think one of my best things, I guess, is I don't piss and moan about that. If that's the case, that's the case, and that's all good. But I felt like last year I helped bring Sobes in for one. I was a big part of trying to get him here because I knew he could help us. And so whether that cost me starting or coming off the bench, it didn't concern me. So I think the one thing going forward this year, especially with losing Glidden, I think we'll see me and Sobes play together a lot more, which I think will help him and myself. And whether that's starting or coming off the bench, I really don't care. It's not about that. It's about normally probably finishing the game. That's the most important time of the game. So I'm just looking forward to getting back into it. And I think this year bringing Drimic in too, it adds guys around me that I've played with a little bit, and I'm looking forward to being able to be on the ball, off the ball, and doing stuff like that.
Hey, Jace, when we think of your journey as well, it hasn't always been a bed of roses because, and I'm not talking about what's happening on the floor because, mate, we almost lost you. I remember that year when we were there and they found the person that was there that revived you. For those that aren't aware, you had a very, very serious car accident, and let's not beat around the bush. You were inches from death. Does that experience, has it sort of shaped your personality, and was it some sort of epiphany and you have puts things in perspective, or what impact did it have on you?
I was probably lucky. I was young and naive. That I probably treated it like I just rolled an ankle or something, when in hindsight it was far from that. And I guess I see little things now, like here you got me and Anthony Petrie. He messages me last night and he says, "Did you see those young kids that died in that car last night near his house? Driving along, had a head on or something, and 3 died, 1 didn't." And I said to him, I go, "I don't know how I survived that day." I said, "I got hit by a semi-trailer." I was like not a little car. I got hit by a truck on a freeway on this side of me, like next to me, and I did not die. And I said, it isn't until things like that happen, and I sit there and I go, not even being an idiot, I'm like, I don't know how I got out alive. And then you guys probably know this too, you got kids, but it wasn't until the day Louis was born that I think it hit me, because I was like, I almost wasn't here for this. And I think I've always been around families, and a lot of my mates that I've grown up with, because I guess started in the NBL so young, they were all older with kids. I've always I wanted to have kids, and I was excited for the day I was a dad. And I always wanted to have kids when I was around basketball, because I felt like I had such a great childhood through basketball. Like the friends I made, watching my dad, he was a general manager, but being around you guys when you were playing, and I wanted that for my kids. And then when he came, I think it hit me. It was like, holy crap, like I almost didn't have this. And it was probably a moment, probably one of the first moments that it really just like hit me, as in like, yeah, I'm very lucky to still be able to experience stuff like this. And then, yeah, it's still wild.
Well, I still, I mean, Coach, when we saw the picture of your car after that accident, it's one you look at and you go, if you didn't know that you were around, you go, well, whoever is in that driver's seat is absolutely cooked. I mean, they just had no chance. So it's, I mean, even just looking at the photo, and, you know, I grew up with you and your family, and I can still remember the time and seeing that photo. Even though I know you're okay now, it's still, I mean, there it is. That you go, how does someone, that is ridiculous, how someone gets through that. And it's scary even just looking at that photo to think what could have been. And that's it. I mean, it's just very, very, very lucky. And
were you nervous to get back in a car, Jay? So how did that work? I mean, how long did it take for you to drive again?
Not a long time, because Dad got a new car, so I wanted to drive the new car. But I hate being next to semi-trailers to this day. But the drive home, I'll never forget the drive home. I got out of hospital pretty quick because I hated the hospital. I wasn't in a private one. I was in a room with 4 people at Westmead, and I wanted to get out of there, and they wouldn't let me out till I was okay on crutches. And crutches for me normally, because I had a bad ankle before that, was you get the swing and you swing through, where I couldn't swing because my hips were ruined, so I had to like lightly walk. So I remember the day they said, oh, if you're okay on Monday with crutches, I've been like a week, I think, and they were like, we'll let you go on Tuesday. So I faked it as good as I could and said nah, it's all right, no problem, I'm good. So I could get the hell out of there. And then that drive home, I remember being on the edge of my seat the whole way home. I wasn't comfortable because my hips were broken. And then I remember just sitting in the car, just like almost had to close my eyes because I just wanted to not be in the car. But it probably I didn't really do much once I got home. And then Dave got a new car, and that was when I kind of drove around. But it was definitely took some adjusting.
How long did it take for you to get back on the basketball court, though?
I played, so they said I'd be out for 8 to 12 months, and I played after 5.5, my first NBL game, and I couldn't even walk to the car after the game.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's scary stuff.
Hey, Jace, we spoke earlier about your dad. He was an Olympian. He's a superstar. And for those that aren't aware, was a part of the very first NBL championship winning team with the St Kilda Saints, and made a very, very important pass in that game. But for me as a kid growing up, was always about representing Australia and going to the Olympics because of my dad. Your aspirations, you had the chance, you have represented Australia at the senior level and had some great experiences with it. But is that still a goal, or do you just put that aside now and focus on your profession?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be silly not to have it still there. It's obviously, it's hard now, I guess, with the talent we've got overseas and the way that kind of program's heading towards. But any chance I get to play in the Australian jersey, I love. And I've been very fortunate since I was 17, I think. So I've been in the program for 12 years. So I've been in and around it for years. I got to go to that World Cup camp last year. I was a late inclusion and I did really well. So I guess when you go into an environment with talent, I think the one thing that I've always prided myself on is, I guess because of my IQ, I feel like I'm able to play with talented people because, one, I don't need the ball, but I can help and I can get people the ball. And if I'm open, I can knock it down for them as well. So I found I did really well at the camp last year, and I feel like if I was able to go into another camp, I'd still do all right. Whether that mean I made the team or not, you never know. But yeah, obviously, any chance you get to represent, and if I could go to a major tournament, that would be incredible.
Are we? I know you want to talk about the Olympics. I want to talk about something else. Jason, are you getting ready? Are you having another kid soon?
Another one already? Little Louie's only one. Oh, have you got an
That's
announcement?
No, number one wasn't planned, so I can't tell you.
We're in lockdown. I'm asking the question. Are you guys thinking about having another kid, brother?
I don't know, not yet. Although I think Jasmine's actually already at the stage where she'd want one. But we'll see what plays out. But I'm not planning yet. I think I want to enjoy another little bit with him till we have another one in the mix.
Make sure you.
Because then I'll know I'm full time with him.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of kids and your experiences, you started very young and you still got a long way to go in your career. But if you were out there to the young kids coming through the ranks right now and trying to make a living out of the sport and become a professional, what are the non-negotiables? What are the things, the advice that you provide to someone like Wigness?
The young fella that's staying with him. The young guy that's living
Well, what do you tell him?
I reckon the thing that I was fortunate enough, like putting my dad aside and things like that, like obviously I was very fortunate. I wasn't fortunate. My dad did a lot to get to where he did. But obviously growing up, I was lucky to have a guy like that at home every day. But besides that, I think I was around good people. I don't think I made very poor decisions as a kid. And I surrounded myself still to this day with people that I think like, if I was to walk into your house right now and bring my group of friends, you wouldn't sit there and be like, who the hell is that guy he's hanging out with? Or
Right.
I think back on it as a kid, and I didn't always have the greatest coach and stuff like that, but I had pretty good coaches. And then a lot of my mates were basketball people and their families were basketball people. And I think I just surrounded myself with good people that helped me, I guess, helped me get better being around them, but also helped me make others better. And I feel like that played a massive part in me developing as a basketball player, because in the holidays when people wanted to go and do parties and things like that, when we got to that age, a lot of my friends said, well, are you going to the Razorbacks training? I'll come with you. So here I am in my holidays at Razorbacks training. And whilst I've always had a reputation for, okay, might not work as hard as the next bloke or things like that. But when I think back to my childhood, a lot of all I did was basketball. And I didn't, if I had a day off, I guarantee half the time I wasn't sitting at home. I was at the stadium running alongside the other court while the Razorbacks trained and things like that. So I think the biggest thing I'd say is just surround yourself with people that you think actually have your best interests at heart. And if you think you can help them, they're probably going to help you at some point. I reckon that's a lot of things kids don't think of, because a lot of things kids think of these days is me, 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 me. And I think a lot of it is what's around you that helps you.
Jason, I remember, it was a long time ago now, and I can't even remember the exact specifics of it, but I remember getting a call, I think it was the head coach of UCLA, when you were a youngster, saying, hey, we want this Jason Cadee. We want him to be at UCLA. And for those who don't know, UCLA, one of the biggest, best programs, college basketball programs in the United States. That wasn't your path, but it is the pathway for a lot of kids these days. In fact, most of them. Is that a pathway that you look now, if you had when Louis gets there, is that a pathway you think is the preferred option for kids these days?
It seems to be a common one. If I went back, I don't think I'd ever change my decision. I always, as a kid, I wanted to be an NBL basketball player. Now, kids these days, they want to be an NBA basketball player. So times have changed in the sense that our access to all that is different to when I was a kid. Like, obviously there was NBA games on when I was a kid, but it wasn't like it is now. You flick the TV on, there's NBA highlights and things like that. And I think a lot of kids still want to play in the NBL, but they're seeing how Australians are going to college and going to the NBA, and so that's becoming a preferred option. And I understand it. And now, if I was to do it again, would I like to see what would have happened if I did go to UCLA? Maybe. But at the time, for me, it wasn't like it was now. And I just had an NBL contract. I didn't have a development contract. I had an NBL contract with, I think, 3 teams or college. And for me, I just wanted to be an NBL player. Now, when my child gets to that point, when Louis is at that point, hopefully, and has that decision to make, I think it relies on the kid too. Some kids are naturally homebound and want to be home, and some kids want to go explore that. And I think it depends where it's at too. I would say to him, if the chance of him going to UCLA enhances his chances of making the NBA, then go ahead, mate.
You've been in the league. You've been in the NBL, what, 11 years, 12 years now? Somewhere in
This
there?
is my 11th or 12th, yeah.
11. What's different from when you first got into now? Not yourself, but is there anything you would change about the NBL?
Well, I think it's gone from strength to strength. The overall talent is pretty strong. I think from imports through, I mean, the league's always had pretty good imports throughout the years. Like a lot of the teams that do really well have had good imports. I don't know if there's anything I'd necessarily change. I think the path it's on is a very good path in terms of, I think they're starting to get it right in terms of the marketing and the engagement with the fans and things like that. And I think that plays a massive part in the growth of the game. And now it's a matter of, I think, staying on that path that we keep kids coming through and building your young kids into NBL players, which shows the path that there is that a lot of us have taken, but it was kind of just forgotten about. Like, I think we see a lot of blokes that have come through the AIS program, Aussies and things like that are now playing either in the NBA, NBL. And so obviously something's working through that, but it's a matter of now, I guess, putting a spotlight on it and helping it enhance Australian juniors and the pathway they can get to there, and even through college and things like that, and whether the kids can they can set up a program where kids don't have to go to college because here's a contract that you're the 11th man or 12th man this year, but next year you're contracted. Or I think it's just keep bringing juniors through, which will help the NBL immensely going forward.
Yep.
A lot of guys are getting older too. That's the thing. Like, we just lost Damien Martin, Kev Lish. There's a lot of guys like that now that are kind of on the back end, and we're starting to see some kids that are, okay, where's the 18-year-old, 17-year-olds like a Tamari Wigness who says, I'm going to come play in the NBL, I'm going to play some minutes.
You gotta have a smile on your face, because if you lose Kevin Lish and Damon, you can probably get the ball off the floor now. I know you were shaking in your boots when those guys were playing, huh?
It's a better books now. Don't have to worry about Kevin fouling me all the time.
Oh, please.
Hey, James, before you go,
got away
are you
from
still looking at the coaches when you shoot your free throws? Talk a little bit about that.
There's a coach I had, Andrew Gaze.
Tell the people what happened.
No, but I just said he should be a 95 plus
Let him talk. It's not
free throw shooter.
Tell me what happened, Jason.
Coach, and it wasn't me shooting. It was Brad Newley. I've probably still got it on my phone. He was at the foul line, shoots a free throw, and the camera was behind the backboard. And in the left-hand side, I see Drewy. Free throw bricks, and Drewy's on the sideline. Blowing up about the missed free throw. I sent it to you, Coach. I said, this is why I can't make bloody free throws this year. Drewy.
Well, actually, you look at your numbers. You shot it better when you were with us, when you've been at Brisbane. But hey,
well, that's a free throw like that.
You know what though? It came back to us because that year you left and you were with Brisbane that first year. You were playing us at our place, and the game was sort of in the balance. And you went to the free throw line, and he missed it, and then you give me the sneaky look over, and I was like, yes, now I'm happy. But they were great days. Great days. Hey, Jace, nothing but success for you, my friend, with the Brisbane Bullets. You've got an interesting squad you've put together. You whack a couple of imports in there, and unfortunately you can say this about almost every team in the competition, but you guys are going to be right up there as contenders. Very unlucky not to make the finals last season, only missing out by percentages, but great lineup, and you're going to be an integral part of that. So we wish you well, and thank you for sharing a bit of time with us and our ever-expanding audience of dozens. So we just hope that you have a great season, and this little interview gives you a little bit of a
Hey, Jace, before you go, word of advice: if you're in doubt, let it fly, brother. Let it fly.
I've never forgot that, Coach. Except
That's
the only
right.
problem is my coaches aren't you anymore. I can't say, Coach told me if I don't shoot this.
Good man, Jace. All the very best, pal.
Take care, pal.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Coach, we're lucky. We've been speaking to a lot of fantastic guests, but we're very lucky. So far, everyone we've spoken to, very articulate, speak well. And what about Jason Cadee's story?
He's a good dude. He's a good guy, man. He is a good guy, isn't he?
He is a great guy.
New father, too. New father.
I worry for poor little Louis. I'm not sure about the guidance he's going to be getting. No, I say that in jest because Jason's a superstar. And you know what? When you see him with kids, he's going to be an awesome dad.
Yes,
So we wish him nothing but success. Speaking of the NBL, Copes, just a few little things going on. Yanni Wetzel, who we spoke about from San Diego. We spoke about him 3 or 4 weeks ago when he signed with Southeast Melbourne Phoenix.
Yep.
Apparently, he had an out clause in his contract. He's ta-da. He said he had out clause to go to Europe, so he signed in Europe. And the Phoenix are saying all the right things, that they wish their players well. He was only there 5 minutes, so it's not like they would have built a huge bond with him.
Yeah, but it still takes a lot of time to recruit a guy and do all your due diligence and find out about him. So they spent some time, and they were hopeful that he was going to be on that team, though.
And I guess here in Australia that we're forced into these types of contracts because if there is some more significant offer a player gets, you don't want to deny him that opportunity. But
not everyone's like that, though, Julie. Not everyone's like that. Once you sign that contract, some countries will say, no, bad luck, pal.
That is true. That is true. But clearly it was agreed upon before he signed. And whether or not the Phoenix, you say, well, if you're not prepared to sign, well, let's just wait. You go away, do your thing. And when you are ready to sign, before you go ahead and make all these announcements, I think it's better for the player and the club if there's that mutual understanding. You go away and we assume that you're contracted, but we're not going to announce it because now you go through it, it sort of looks like, oh, well, somewhere else is better. And, you know, I just think that there may be ways. No offense to Phoenix. I mean, we had the same sort of agreements in contracts with players at Sydney Kings, and we were all for it. So but I'm just saying that this perhaps highlights some of the difficulties with those things. Copes, a couple of signings that you know a little bit about. Well, you were charged with the responsibility to do some research, and I know
really? Was I?
With you did some due diligence, but the Illawarra Hawks look like, the Hawks.
The Hawks. Justin Simon.
Yes. Now, he basically round out their roster. They're almost finished now. Justin Simon, he played at St. John's, a big program in the Big East. What can you tell us about him?
6'5" shooting guard, too. Apparently, he lights it up.
Yep.
You know, he's and look, he received 20 Division I scholarships coming out of high school, Kansas, Louisville, Indiana. Wow. So he must have been pretty good, obviously.
Played in the G League, didn't he?
Huh?
Played in the G League?
Played in the G League, absolutely. Shot the ball well. You know the funny thing about the Hawks? Yep. They're sending some brothers down there. They had some brothers down there, Drew. I think it's like 5 brothers. Georgia ain't messing around, pal. Hey, man. Perth signed John Mooney. He's a big 6'10" kid, strong, athletic, rebounding fool.
It did. And I actually saw a little bit of him playing because I believe, if I've got my dates right, I think he's straight out of college, is he not?
Straight out of college. Played at Notre Dame. Yeah, played at Notre Dame.
And a big body, and he'll be coming in to fill that role that we saw Plumlee play very, very well at the end of last season. But
I don't know though, Drew. A young kid like that playing for the Perth Wildcats is going to make a difference. I mean, they're used to signing veteran guys.
Yes.
You know, so you come over here as an import, first year, and you don't know the referees, you don't know how to call the game, you get in foul trouble. So I don't know how that thing's going to work.
Well, they had no problems when they did it with James Ennis. He came in straight out of college and was a star, a superstar. Didn't quite get the MVP, but was MVP worthy. And I think in that program, mate, honestly, Coach, you could suit up and they're still going to have a chance to win an NBL title.
Now, let me tell you why. Because me and Cotton would be fighting for that ball, pal. I got to have it, Drew.
The other one before we get off this one that I think is a great signing. I love what the Cairns Taipans are doing. And Jordan, now again, apologies if I messed up the pronunciation of how you say it, but Jordan Ngatai, is that right?
Yeah, Ngatai, yep.
There's a G in there as well, but I think that's how you pronounce it. I think he's going to be a great player, shoots the ball really well. I remember in our second year, and at the last game of the season, he came off and I think he had 17 points in the first half against us. We went on to win the game. And actually in that game, Jason, I think, had 34 or something. So it was a great game. But here is a guy, sneaky hops, can get up, can play above the rim, can shoot it. And with opportunity, I think he can not only be just a good player, I think he can be a great player in our league.
He's actually playing quite well in the New Zealand league as well. I think he's leading his team in scoring over there. So he can flat out shoot the ball. I'm excited to see him play.
Yep. And, you know, they've still got their imports to announce, but if they get all those pieces coming back,
look out for Cairns.
they are going to be really, really good. Hey, Copes, before we go, hazing. Throughout this process, we've seen with the bubble that Goran Dragic, he came out and he gave a very funny story about its time when he was as a rookie with the Phoenix Suns. He was teammates of the great Shaquille O'Neal.
Yep.
And back in those days, hazing, little rookie assignments, he had to apparently carry a piano around for the big fella. And this is Goran Dragic talking about what Shaq made him do in his rookie season at Phoenix.
But yeah, one of those anecdotes, I always had to carry his keyboard when we go on away. It's a big keyboard. And, from the bus to the plane, from the plane to the hotel. And a few times my room was next to his, and I never heard him, play on it. And on the end of the season, I asked him, "Hey, Shaq, did you ever play on the keyboard?" He said, "No." I said, "Why not?" He said, "Yeah. It doesn't work. It's broke." So I had to carry this keyboard the whole season, and that was my rookie duties. But I'm really happy that I was a part of that team, and to get to know Shaq. I mean, he's a character.
Now, Coach, we laugh about it, and I'm sure clearly you see Goran Dragic laugh about it. It's outlawed these days. You're not workplace bullying, workplace relationships,
Right.
all those things. You can't do it, and fair enough because
Joey,
clearly,
come on. You know what you sound like when you say
no. Some people go too far, Coach.
Joey,
Now, that's
we
just
tried to do this back in the day with Chris Anstey.
Yeah, I did.
He and Mark Brackey wanted him to carry a kid's bag, a backpack around or something like that, and you shot it down straight away. This was 25 years ago.
I was ahead of my time, Coach. I was ahead of my time.
Joey, listen, it's a part of the game. It happens with everyone. I did it back with the Sixers. Charles Barkley had
Coach, yes.
Sing with a broom in front of everybody. I had to go to the store and buy orange juice at 2:00 in the morning. It's just something. And guess what? You remember those days once you get older. It's a part of being a rookie and a part of it. And you have to do it when you become a veteran.
And I had to do it when I was with the Seattle Supersonics. We had a tradition with the Australian team. I don't know whether it still exists where you can do it. But I fully appreciate for us, they were just real fun, memorable experiences. For others, though, Copes, there's bullying, there's workplace.
Here you go with the bullying crap. Come on.
But Copes, it's true. You can't ignore that fact that for some, unfortunately, that with some individuals, it can have a devastating effect. So I can understand why it wasn't, but that was very funny. Carrying around a piano that doesn't even work the entire season, that is pretty funny stuff.
That is funny.
Hey, Copes, yet again, you're just taking this podcasting situation to new levels. You've come into your own, you're relaxed, and now just doing some extraordinary things. So,
hey, Joey,
yes.
It's time. It's time, bro. Time is what we have on our side, okay?
That's it.
We sit here with nothing to do. We can't leave the house, so we might as well get on and talk about basketball. Why not?
You know what? This is the sort of conversations we'd be having if we were just on the phone. So now we get to share it. Like I said, hopefully we're getting into the three figures. Hopefully there's at least 100 people that are still tuned in now.
Are you kidding me? Our numbers are over the roof. We're going through the roof, pal.
We've had a couple of shining moments, but it's about consistency, like we always say with the players. So we've got to keep it going, but it is a lot of fun, and we hope each and every one of you that do tune in, that are still listening and still watching, have enjoyed our little program. But if you on YouTube and you're saying, well, how is it can I jump in the car and listen? You can't do that in Victoria right now, but you've got these other mediums. Now, Coach, fill me in. We've got Spotify, bang.
YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast,
and then there's
www.nofilter.media.
.media. So that tricked me a little bit because I said, .media.com.au. No. Just .media. I didn't even know that existed, Coach.
Absolutely.
So that's all out there. And, of course, you can jump on.
the Alley Oop Show, pal.
Yes, and if at all you're confused, you can always jump on the Gaze website, gaze.com.au, front page. There's the podcast every single week. So join in, share it, let people know how much fun we're having, and hopefully how much fun or how angry we're making you, whatever it may be. Feel free to share, but just keep the abusive stuff off social media, because Copes is very sensitive and I'm a little sensitive too.
Get off the microphone.
No, I just want to keep talking. Copes, it's been a lot of fun. Really appreciate these NBA finals that are coming up. These players are doing some extraordinary things, so well done to them, and we look forward to breaking it all down next week on week 8. Thanks for joining us. On behalf of Lanard Copeland, Andrew Gaze, we say bye for now.
See ya.
This has been a No Filter Media production.
Say what you want.